Hello and welcome back to Better Than Adventure. Last time we started building this huge thing, and we're gonna continue doing that today. If you know what this was inspired by, comment down below, cause I'll give you one hint, and it's called Mind Crack. Anyways, so I promised you last time that I wanted to talk about some old YouTube stuff, quote unquote, and that'll continue today. Mainly because that is what I want to do. Basically, we should probably talk about this because it's entertaining, right? At least to me. So back in the good old days of 2001, you didn't really have many good ways of like recording or digitizing video. Most of the time what people would do, they would record onto like a VHS tape, and then they would like copy the footage off of that tape with like one of those shitty digitizers that turn a composite video signal into like a Bluetooth connection and pretend to be a webcam. And then that evolved into just directly capturing with those shitty plugins. And then things change. Things advanced. At some point in time, ATI made, like, this all-in-one wonder card, which was basically just a... It's called a, like, it's basically a PVR, or a personal video recorder. I think that's what the term stands for. What it is, basically, for the layman, aka normal person, is it's a, basically, GPU that also accepts a video input. And you can imagine, this was really cool at the time because it accepted like S-video and RF and whatever. It was like a TV tuner card that could also record the things that are coming in. That's why it was called an all-in-one wonder. It wasn't a high-end card. It specifically targeted like the sector of people who wanted those specific features on like a mid-range card. And it was relatively successful. There were a few more modern iterations made, but nothing that interesting for us. Because then they ended up making these things called PVRs. And like proper PVRs, like Halpage, I think that's how it's pronounced, made one. The idea of a PVR is basically just, it's a... Actually, how do we do this? I want to have, like, glass doors somewhere here, so... I'll leave this and this untouched. Yeah. That's what I'll do. But basically, yeah, so... The PVRs basically just accepted a 720p input, for instance, like the one that I have in my mind right now. And then you would plug them in via a cable and use proprietary software to not only, to basically just write an... Why is this wrong? To just kind of write an MP4 file. I did all of this wrong? Oh, damn it. Okay, we have to move the entire right side of this. Hold on. Okay, yeah, but basically, while I do this, I guess we can continue the story. Basically, all it did was, and there's gonna be a lot of work. All it did was, like, capture video and encode it, and then store it on your hard drive. So, it was a really simple piece of software. Worked wonders. And I guess hardware as well, and it accepted, like, VGA in and whatever. But the thing is, if you've ever watched old YouTube videos, you would know that, even, like, in 2010, 2011, people were not recording in full HD. Remember, in March of 2000 and... Is this... Hold on, I need to make sure. Is this correct? It is, if I just remove you. Yeah, okay, and now if I Oh, I don't want to go insane twice. Okay, that's good. So, basically, yeah, if you just used a... back then, like, you had 240p up until early, like, March of 2008, then they added 360p, then in November of, like, '08, they added widescreen, and, 360p. Sorry, widescreen and 720p, and then a year later, 1080p, and then they added, like, you know, the other resolutions and 60 FPS video in 2014, etc., etc., etc. But, having the actual capabilities of recording this stuff was kind of difficult. You see, there was Fraps, but Fraps had an issue. Nobody liked Fraps, everybody just kind of put up with it because it and the other softwares, which I'll just call Fraps for the sake of brevity, all worked with a very simple premise. They were paid tools, which just had a proprietary and very simple media format that was one step away from dumping raw frames onto your hard drive. And the way they worked was basically they would create these very, very high, like, we're talking gigabytes per minute files. So hard drives would sometimes struggle to keep up with higher, you know, density, I guess we can call them encodings, right? It was insane. And then OBS came around at some point in time, and people started adopting it more and more because OBS used FFmpeg. And FFmpeg was basically open source, free, incredible, etc., etc., etc. And that's kind of where the story ends, but users didn't really catch on until way later. Because a lot of the time, hey, how do you capture stuff? Fraps was just kind of a... If Fraps was like Coca-Cola. Even when you think of, like, fucking... What is the Lidl Cola called? Like, you know, even when you think about Pepsi, when you think about fucking store brand cola, they all taste the same, by the way. Some of them taste... I guess this is like saying all lemon juice tastes the same because it tastes of lemons, but, like... No offense to a, like, soft drink aficionados, but all of them taste the exact same to me. Like, except the Lidl one. The Lidl one somehow, it's not bad, but it tastes dry. I don't know how, but they made a drink taste dry. Maybe it's the caffeine. I don't know. But basically, yeah, people really didn't catch on to that for a while, so you had some other methods of recording. The biggest issue was that up until, like, roughly 2012, 2013, you had to record stuff on your CPU, and that is what makes that era sort of interesting to me. Because in 2014, basically every new Intel CPU had a video encoder, every AMD and Intel card had a video encoder, and even if those encoders may not be very efficient, well, they are far more efficient than, like, Fraps and DxTory. They are far better, in my opinion, and also they're just, like, you know, basically free. And, you know, obviously use up a lot less bandwidth. So, I was just kind of sitting there one day, in a school computer lab in high school, many years ago now, shockingly. Time passes, and I'm scared. And I thought to myself, well, hold on a moment. I have OBS on my thumbstick from a test I did earlier. Because I was just moving files around, whatever. I don't actually remember the reason, but I was like, wait a minute. I also have Doom on this USB stick. And I was sitting there in the computer lab because this was high school. I was done with my project, like, on the first class. And I had, like, in total, tens of hours of classes that I would do nothing in the whole year. Because I was one of those. Oh, no, I'm kidding. They were just really easy. I'm not particularly intelligent at projects. But, yeah. I'm just good at, like, doing the whole lock-in, do the entire thing at once. And honestly, I should do them, you know, it's far easier to do the assignments when I'm given them. But now I've kind of... now I've kind of, as... now I've kind of slowly shrunk into the corn cob version of... I'm just gonna not, and I'm just gonna sit there like the corn cob and do them in the last minute. But, you know, it's fine. But basically, here's the story, I guess if you want the short of it. OBS was just kind of shitting itself. The PC lab at the time, I picked out, like, the shittiest PC, which had, like, a Core 2 Duo in it. Just out of curiosity, and, like, no GPU, it had chipset graphics. So, obviously, it ran, like, Doom 2, I think? Yeah, Doom 2 ran, but the recorder walked, and I barely managed to get, like, 640 by 480 at 30 FPS, with, like, Doom barely being able to run. And, I thought to myself, wow, this sucked. And if you want to know how that turns out, you know, in a more modern context, I managed to record old Minecraft on a slower PC at 720p 30 and at an actually decent bitrate. So you may be wondering what kind of black voodoo magic am I using, and why there was a video on this that I made on the old computer that I still have at I have it at my grandmother's house. I don't have the space for it at home, so it just kind of sits there. She doesn't care. But, the story of it basically is, I was testing stuff in OBS, I was talking with people who know a bit about FFmpeg and video encoding, and to have the perfect, like, mixture of quality and speed, I settled on, H.263 Flash video, at like 15 megabits per second at 720p 30. And it works. It takes like one core of your CP of that old like 2.1 gigahertz Core 2 Duo, which is quite a bit actually, but it's not that much. Not as bad as Fraps, I don't think. And because we're only, you know, we only really need to record at 30 FPS, so it's whatever. The main benefit of this just kind of comes in with how light the load is on the hard drive and, you know, in your storage. But then the issue came that I was not sure how to, you know, keep in mind, we are doing this with modern-ish tools. I had to use an old version of OBS because new OBS versions dropped support for old, shitty, unsecure, unsupported operating systems for a very clear reason. And to be also clear, I do not connect any of the old PCs to the modern internet. I do not want to have my old fucking retro Windows XP virtual machine, for instance, because I don't really have the space for, like, an entire modern system. But yeah, I don't want to risk connecting that and getting it infected, because as we all know, Windows XP is about as secure as a no trespassing sign. And nothing else. Like, it is just a very flawed system. But yeah, basically, what I managed to do was I managed to record a bunch of old games, you know, GTA, Minecraft, etc., period-correct versions-ish of Minecraft, like, you know, beta, and maybe even early release, at 720p at 30. Now, that sucks. Now, granted, those versions would have been, you know, in the modern versions, like 1.6.4, I think, was on the computer when I was testing it. It didn't run too well, but think of how much better it would run on a better PC. Like, think about if you had, like, a decently fast Athlon X2 from, like, 08 or 09. Keep in mind, this was a PC that was basically from 06. It was before Terascale. So, if you had a reasonably, like, you know, if you were trying to do YouTube, you know, Minecraft YouTube in 2011 or whatever, and you had a decent Core 2 Duo, or like a decent, especially if you had like a decent, you know, Core 2 Quad or a Tri-Core, you could have had a really pleasant experience. Asterisk. Because, as you know, I said we were using modern tools. And this is where the programmer stuff comes in. So you'll need to know a little bit about... Actually, I'm kidding. You don't need to know anything. I'll explain. It's actually way simpler than you'd think. So when your GPU... Basically, the way that this stuff works on a modern computer is kind of like this. So your game is doing these things called draw calls, right? And each call tells the GPU to do something. And one of those calls is telling the GPU to flip the frame buffer, which basically just means, hey, all of the things that you've been drawing, now send it to the screen. The way you can efficiently record games is by basically waiting to, like, you make a little hook application that hooks into your game and listens for that specific call, like, hey, now do this. And then when it hears the, hey, now flip the frame buffer, then it also jumps in. This is why it has issues with anti-cheat, by the way, sometimes. And it also copies that frame for itself. That is why there's never screen tearing when you're playing, you know, stuff with OBS. That is basically the long and short of it. That is also what Fraps used. That is why they were so efficient. Because that capture method is way faster than the old-fashioned method that, a lot of other encoding software used back then, which was GDI grab, which basically, I'm not fully sure what it did, but I'm pretty sure it, like, pulled the entire screen and then checked the pixels, and that was slow. So if you made your own hook API, which I don't know how easy or hard that is to do, because I couldn't be bothered doing that, because I already had OBS, and if you just used FFmpeg, which you can use through OBS, you could have a very reasonable and enjoyable recording experience on an old PC with old versions of Minecraft in 720p. And just the fact it's possible kind of proved something that kind of became very clear the longer I was looking into that stuff. And it's the skill issue of all of it. You know, of it all. People just didn't have the skills. It sounds dumb, it's like, haha, yeah, but it's true. People just weren't skilled back then. I mean, people were fine watching, like, 240p, 360p Let's Plays if the guy making them was entertaining. The standards were lower, and also a lot of the time people's connections really weren't fit for anything faster. But, you know, yeah, people just kinda were fine with it, and that's why it persisted. And that's honestly fine. Nowadays, I feel a little bit different, you know? A lot of the time, the thing which differentiates your success from the success of other people is kind of your personality, which, at the very least, I have that, if nothing else. But the big thing sort of is that a lot of the time, the reason why big YouTubers are big is because they're already big. Which is something that is kind of an interesting idea to think about. Like, they're popular because, partially because people already kind of trust them, you know? If you are, for instance, trying to watch a review on if something is good or not, would you rather watch the guy who has 5 views or the guy who has 5 million views? Clearly, the guy with the higher view count probably knows more than you. That's why they're popular. And that's not flawed reasoning, it's completely logical. I mean, if you wanna buy, like, if you wanna, you know, buy editing software, or something expensive, right? If you want to buy a car, you're gonna look at what the best-selling cars are. Because very clearly, if, like, the Toyota Corolla is selling well, it has to have something good about it. It may not be literally the most optimal. That's why Nvidia kind of sells well. It's just because it's kind of the default that people will go to because it's popular already. And I'm saying that, and I'm eyeing the ARC B580 because holy shit, that encoder is yummy. Yummers. Yeah, but that's kind of the story of it, I guess, in terms of hardware. It's mostly a skill issue. And it's one of these things where I want to talk about more. I guess we can talk about the audio side of it. If you're doing YouTube and you're doing Let's Plays, please, in OBS, you can Google it if you don't know how to do this exactly, but please set your audio, like your microphone track, to be separate from your video track. That way, you can isolate them. If you want to reuse you speaking without the gameplay sounds, you can do that. If you want to reuse the footage in the other way, you can also do that while still keeping the sound. If you want to, make one of them louder or quieter because it's not balanced properly when you were recording it, you can do... It's really useful. But I think, honestly, one of the biggest issues which a lot of old videos had was just the audio quality more than the video quality. Audio quality has, like, a, specific limit, like, at some point in time, you will be limited in both video and audio quality by YouTube's tools, but audio is one of those things which I feel has, a higher skill floor. Because listening to, like, watching a video that's only, if you imagine you're watching this video in, like, 480p, versus watching it in 4K 60, but my microphone sounds like, I'm talking to you on Xbox Live. There's a bit of a difference. That's kind of why I put a decent chunk of effort into using my current microphone and just optimizing its settings so I can have... Also, I hate the word optimization because it's often just like a buzzword which doesn't mean anything. But in this case, I did literally optimize the settings. I did some blind tests. I had people thinking they're like a cheaper and a more expensive microphone from people who make music and audio, so... And then I had those people give me further advice, and then, yeah. And then, I guess also a big issue with YouTube popularity is your tone of voice. Like, my tone of voice isn't exactly the most heroic. It's partially because people wonder about, like, ooh, your accent. Yeah, I'm not English at all. So my accent, and specifically my tone of speaking in English is, for whatever reason, a little bit higher than it is in my normal language. Which is weird. I don't know why it is. It's just a little bit higher. I don't know. But, the fun of it all comes with, back then the bar for it was just lower, but even then... So much of YouTube kinda stays the same. Like, we talk about the AVGN and the angry reviewer genre being over, but it's not really over. People still review shitty games all the fucking time. Also, I recently had a comment which was like... it was on the Luigi's Mansion 2 playthrough, and the person was like, wow, this has a lot of swearing. It'd be really funny if this was like a parent commenting on like this, because the kid clicked on the video and they heard, well, I'm sorry, my content is not made for children. Children may be a secondary audience for my videos, because they are video games, but I obviously talk about, not adult-only topics, clearly. because this is YouTube and not XTube, but like, when I'm playing this, I'm talking about, like, times on YouTube, which most of the people who know about these times would have to be adults to relate to them. This is all meant for adults. Because it's, they are the target audience, because why would a child, and I guess that is sort of a, personal failing in the market. Like, obviously, yeah, probably the person who'd watch this isn't that old. Maybe, I don't know. I'm not a fucking marketer. But as I was saying, like, you can still find YouTubers, like, reviewing Sonic 06. Which has to be, like... There's this tendency when people... And this is why I don't want to review any, like, Sonic games. I don't review stuff in general, because I'm gonna be, like, beholden to biases that, would obviously piss some people off, and then, you know, how dare you not have the same opinion on this as I do, sir. But, the big thing is, Sonic 06 is kind of a bad game. Like, obviously, yeah. But, there's some stuff in that game that is genuinely, like, interesting from a, you know, sort of story design point of view. It tries to be serious, and it's kind of, like, the story's kind of batshit in a very interesting way. It's kind of like what I enjoy in some of the stories. I mean, hey, I like StarCraft's story, But, you know, the thing is, people just kind of have this tendency to do the AVGN thing, which is, I guess it's more, maybe it's a little bit more of the nostalgia critic thing than the AVGN thing. But in general, like, the angry reviewer thing, where if there's a piece of media you don't like, you don't have to give it a fair shot. Like, with Sonic 06, you can just suspend, you know, there's something called suspension of disbelief, which is, if there's maybe a bit of a, you know, like, for instance, you know, how would Sonic be at this event at the same time that Mr. Eggman was? How would you know, Eggman know that he needs you know what power the princess has and know how to activate it, but he doesn't know what the power is? I watched two guys actually, Rerez, try to review the Sonic 06 thing, because, oh, it was their special, I think, 50th video? And it was meant to be, like, this really cool thing, because they finally get to it, and, like... I couldn't watch the video, because it felt like it was over 10 years out of date. It felt like something the game dude would say. Like, wait, how does he know about this, you know? And it was just like... That's not... You're not making fun of the game. You're trying to make fun of writing that is clearly, at the very least, competent. You know, like, it's not Sonic Boom the game bad writing, it's just writing. And I understand some people were horrified and still meme about it, because, oh my god, furry, Sonic is kissed by the princess. Okay. Okay. Maybe it's like that Twitter meme where it's like that friend who's too woke, but like, okay. Clearly Sonic meant quite a lot to her. I mean, obviously, but, you know. Oh, I have to go around. Whatever. But yeah, it's just... the whole... I guess that it's a mixture of the AVGN and Nostalgia Critic, because they were very definitive in the way they talked about stuff. Because the point was, you wouldn't watch an AVGN video or a Nostalgia Critic, you know, review, and something like, for instance, you know, when the AVGN made a video on something, chances are you would click on the video already knowing what the point of the video was, you know. It's not like, hey guys, today we'll be reviewing this old hidden gem, Metal Storm. I love this game, it's so cool. I'm referencing Stop Skeletons from Fighting, also known back in the day as the Happy Video Game Nerd, who had the opposite shtick. But yeah, we ended up kind of having, like, people who would just, you know, the angry reviewer genre, who would just review games that you would already come in expecting to be bad. So they would often not give those games a fair shot at all. But it's kinda whatever. Like, you know, these days, oh yeah, the angry review is haha. But man, they were at least a bit of a scourge. Honestly, they were a far worse impact on YouTube than, like, back in the day, people hated Let's Plays, because, you could obviously, like, push out a lot of Let's Play videos in a short span of time, because, and it would get recommended, like, to you all at once, because back in the day, there was a 10 and then 15-minute, like, YouTube video limit. I can actually check for you. I mean, we have the time. I need to find YouTube feature, YouTube history feature, wiki. History of YouTube. Yeah, so in very early 06, they made a 10-minute video limit. And then at some point, I have to find... Okay. When did YouTube remove video limit? YouTube history video length. So in 2010, it was extended to 15 minutes. And then in late September of 2010, it was increased all the way to 12 hours, which today I think it may be either 12 hours or 256 gigs. I'm not sure. But I think it makes much more sense to, if I was making, like, a really long documentary, I would probably split it up into 2-hour chunks. And for the LP stuff, I keep it to half an hour because it's kind of a sort of nice middle ground, I guess. But you can definitely see how, like, playing a game for, you know, if you played a game back in the day, like, let's say you had some time when you came home, so you would have 4 hours of footage. That's 4 times 6, because remember 10, you know. So you would have 24 videos, and you would upload all of them, like, at once, because there was no, you know, so you'd upload 24 videos per day, because you had a 10-minute limit. And that was very good for the algorithm, because, oops, at some point, it was gonna start prioritizing watch time and screw over animators. But then, like, yeah, people just hated Let's Plays for some time. And then people started liking them again. But thankfully, at least, you know, that 180 kind of made sense. Because people just thought it was kind of low effort, even if they just, you know, it was basically just a shield to hide behind, you know, call something you don't like low effort, when, you know, the other, everything's kind of low to mid to high-ish effort. Whatever. And then now people defend reaction videos, yay! Anyways, yeah, I'll see you next time when we'll continue the story of YouTube, I don't know. See you next time. Goodbye.